A big problem when it comes to discussing having a debate over something, particularly in this case, game balance in some sense, or some mechanic of the game and how it should work, is that since you're going to use terms like should, and this is the way I think the game must be, and this is what it could be, you really have to define even your philosophy on the game before you get into it. Like, how do you consider balance? What is good in that sense? You have to look at the question and how you're phrasing it, because you can have a very interesting topic, but if you don't phrase the question in the correct manner, then you're not going to get to an interesting answer. Actually, you might just end up, as people often do in this particular case especially, just making points that are just generalities that aren't nailed down to anything specific, or mentioning specific detail, but then not looking at the actual philosophy behind how did you come to those conclusions, and let's look at like what you weigh up to be more important and see if there's any merit to that, and basically look at the premise of what you're saying, break that down, and then add in detail, and detail must conform to the premises and philosophies that you've defined. If it doesn't, if there's inconsistencies, then it takes away the credibility of your argument. So a phrase that I've heard said many times in terms of does Valve want to do this is they say that the reason why Valve does these updates to CSGO, where they make pistols more powerful, pistols no one used before, then they make SMGs more powerful, and then they nerf the AWP a bit. One of the things that people often say as like now just a piece of rhetoric is, oh, well, you see what happens is Valve want every gun in the game to be viable. And that's just thrown out there as a statement, which is a very, very vague statement, actually. I mean, what does that even mean? Every gun viable? Well, viable in what respect? You're going to need context before I know what's viable, you know. Viable for pros to use, viable for anyone to use, viable to be bought at any time in the game, viable to be used in any situation in the game. What does viable mean there? And so not only do people make that statement, but then I actually see a decent proportion of people going along with that view as well, saying actually this makes the game more interesting, makes the game more exciting. Like, I like the fact that there's viability. They'll actually talk about some of the best weapons in the game as if they were overpowered, and we need to take that away, we need to nerf this aspect, we need to make this other weapon used, and it's boring when it's just these weapons being used. So I wanted to address this topic, and we'll start off with talking about the SMGs, the semi-automatic machine guns. And the reason why we'll start here is because this is a recent area where we've seen some of these discussions happening, and then it'll lead into the general topic of weapon viability. So first of all, the SMGs, some of them were buffed. Now, it is worth making this distinction, okay? I saw this the point made the other day. It is valid that one of the things about the SMG that you have to acknowledge is that actually some of the weapons were as good or even slightly better before. I'm thinking of like is it the MP9? The one that's really cheap for the CTs. That weapon was actually slightly better from what I remember, but it has this insane rate fire anyway. But the point is, people very rarely ever used them, especially because the competitive meta was even used in matchmaking. If you just go straight to a heavy rifle or you go to a pistol. Now, let's ask that first of all. Before the buffs happened, why weren't those SMGs used? Even though some of them were quite powerful still and could have been used in this particular manner to raise the same money, to run and gun, all these things. Well, here's the key thing. It's not that they were viable before and that people just didn't figure out, which to a very small degree is correct. But it's the same exact argument with the Tech 9, okay? Remember, the Tech 9 was there the whole time. The Tech 9 could have been used the whole time. Tech 9 would have been overpowered any time at the end of 2014, but it was almost never used. And what was the reason why it was never used? Because the same issue is going to come up here. The reason it was never used is because the CZ existed and was even better and was so powerful, so cheap, had so little negative to it that it was almost never the correct decision to buy a Tech 9 over a CZ, especially when the CZ used to be $300 at one point in time, but even at $500, it would never be correct to have the Tech 9 instead of the CZ. The advantages were too high. Therefore, it doesn't matter if the other gun was actually overpowered and was like overly viable. It actually wasn't viable in a competitive sense. There was a hierarchy there where it would always still be correct to have bought a CZ. And the same was the issue with the SMGs. If you were playing, and I'm going to talk from a competitive point of view, but in general, the competitive meta to a degree should trickle down through matchmaking and through every other level. Part of the reason why no one would use these SMGs is because these super OP pistols existed at the time. And so as a result, it actually is worth it if I have any level of skill. And we have to talk about these guns in terms of how skilled you are. It can't just be like, let's talk about them in terms of shit players. Because for shit players, you can balance all sorts of things out by the fact that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't even know the correct firing technique or in what situation to use the gun. So we're talking about the pro players who use the guns at the correct ranges. Well, instead of correct and right, let's just say most effective. Pro players will find the most effective way to use these weapons, and they'll abuse that. They'll use it to the maximum. They'll be as effective as they can. That's why people like LDLC now, Envy, and Fnatic use these weapons in certain ways. It's actually the fault of people like Nip and Virtus.pro if they don't abuse those guns, because that's the part of their job as a pro, is to make the gun, is to use the game as effectively as possible to win and give themselves the best chance to win. So now we're talking about that. In almost all situations, it was too much money to buy the SMG over the CZ or Tech 9. There's going to be very rare situations in which it would be significantly better. You're going to get a very good kill reward even still for the pistols, not an issue. And when you kill someone, you're going to pick up their gun anyway, or you're going to die. So the issue is, you spend all that money, and let's say you get one kill with it, and it's on a guy who has a rifle, which is the sort of situation you're going to be buying these SMGs in sometimes, and before the pistol, well, now you're going to throw the gun away anyway. So you spend all that money to get one kill. So was the kill more likely than with the OP pistol? Well, stats and experience tells us no, because we saw people like Olaf were gods with the Tech 9, and LDLC were fucking monsters with the CZ. They would just get these insane kills at medium to close range. So actually, they weren't viable before, even though they were still overpowered. That's a key concept to understand here. Something can be broken, can actually be fucked up, even if it hasn't been used. That doesn't mean like, oh, well, now it's just because people are using it now that they say it's overpowered. No, it was always overpowered. That actually shows how badly this game's designed and fucking balanced out, by the way. That there's OP shit that we're not even getting to, because there's even super more OP shit that's so fucking broken, there's not even a reason to try the other OP shit, because this is so OP. That's the opposite of viability. What's great about that is, Valve have created their own hierarchy, as I'm going to get to later, but a fucked up hierarchy, where you just buy all this shit that's not very skilled, but they're very abusive, very effective, cheap, gets you loads of money, breaks the economy, and works against the weapons that are supposed to be the best, even in the worlds where those weapons are supposed to be fucking super powerful. So the SMGs, let's look at them beyond that. So they were viable, but they weren't the most OP, that's when they weren't used. One of the reasons why they're so effective is a paradigm shift, which is the concept of run and gun. And now the problem here is that we know with pistols you want to be AD-ADing. We know with rifles, you can't really do the bursting, etc. We know with AWPs, now you're going to have to be very stationary, or you're going to have to go out, totally scope back in, which is a nightmare if you're an AWP. You want to just be going quickly back in with the scope. So with these concepts, being stationary, being in these positions, to be able to run and gun and close the distance is at the moment the most OP thing in Counter-Strike. That's why the Tech 9's super abused. That's why the CZ used to be amazing. That's now that we've got tagging especially. So if you can run in and get like that, it's not just that these guns are good at that range, and obviously they've been buffed so they're excellent spray patterns once a pro learns them. At medium range, he can be getting nearly all the bullets into the body and chest area, so he's going to get a kill, almost certainly. But we've had slight nerfs to some of the pistols. The CZ comes out slower, but no one's fucking using it that way. Tech 9, in theory, has fall-offs, so you have to close the distance even more, and you can't start as far away. The AWP nerf means that the AWP's even more stationary now, and it's even more of a defensive pullback weapon. So now you can close the distance on that guy and get in his face and make him miss a shot and get a kill onto him. But even worse, one of the reasons the SMGs are so viable is because they expose the problems that the best rifles have in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So a core principle of Counter-Strike is that the best weapon, the ideal weapon that a counter-terrorist is going towards, is a Colt. It's called an M4A1 or M4A4 now. Or best weapon for a terrorist is an AK. Now, it's not that these are the best weapons. For example, an AWP does more damage. There was obviously the AUG and the other weapon that did more, technically are better guns, but they're not, because in terms of effectiveness, remember, it's not about right, correct, it's about what's the most effective thing to use. For the money and for the power and for the technique that can be used, the level of accuracy possible, the skill cap, those two weapons were the ideal, they were the sweet spot for each side. Now in CSGO, that still to a degree is the case, but it's been weakened by some of the problems with CSGO to the extent that these other things, which have a degree of viability, now actually become as good in certain senses. Now that's a huge problem that I'm going to get to later. So thinking of the rifle's problems in CSGO, at medium range, so, I mean, we'll have to think mentally here, but imagine in-game about 10 to 15 meters away from you. That's where I'd say medium range starts, okay? That range to about 20, 25 meters. That's about the medium range, maybe 15 to 20 meters away from you. That's about medium range area. In this area, spray is actually terrible. As in, unless you're already on them and you spray most of them in a tight pattern around the guy there, you're going to have real issues, even if you're a world-class player, spraying people down. As in, say 2 people run out like this, and you start firing on one, you're not going to very likely... One of the big problems with the rifles in CSGO is moving the spray. Like, I'm already spraying here, now I want to move this spray, keep aiming it, and move it on to the next guy. That's where the problems come in CSGO. You can spray if you get it onto him, lock it on, and just hold it in a tight pattern and try and get them all into one dot. Now you can do decent spray. You can get that. But it's very difficult to do these moving ones like that. So as a result, as soon as someone gets into this medium range area, unless you're very accurate with your first bullets, you're not going to be getting many kills. Now, this is a problem in itself. That's one of the reasons why so many CTs went hard at using that silenced Colt, even when it now costs more money, it has 10 less bullets, in theory does less damage in certain senses. I'm not actually sure if that's true, but it was the case in 1.6. It's because they wanted to even that up, because that's what you want defensively if you're going to play at these medium range, which you're often going to have to as CT. So because that was weakened there, now things like SMGs, Tech-9, CZs, because of the mobility, not just because of the power of the weapon and the random headshots, which are a problem, but because of the mobility and the fact that those can happen within the paradigm of moving fast as constantly as possible, that then makes a world, and jumping as well now with these guns, makes it where that you can actually have an advantage over the rifle guy. He has to basically hit the first 2 or 3 bullets, or he's probably fucked in this fight. Like, he can't remaneuver and then wait for his crosshair to come down, and then try and get another shot into you, or bullet spray over like this. Meanwhile, he's just a stationary target. You're hammering all these bullets into, and if you've got a fucking MP9 or whatever, the rate of fire is going to be insane into that guy. Your gun is actually now better than his in this situation. Even if it's slightly worse in as much as he's not doing as much damage, well, he gets more money if he gets kills on you. He can keep moving and keep firing if he kills you and go to the next guy. He can jump around. Well, there's all sorts of things he can do. The money he's had to pay is much less. So the problem here is you're eroding some of the core strengths of the rifle. There's no hierarchy there between the rifle and that weapon. Yes, there's longer ranges that the rifle's better at. Yes, there's scenarios where if they were right in your face and there was no spray issue whatsoever, yes, the rifle would be more powerful. But this middle area here is very dangerous. So rifles are immobile. They have a low clip size. Here's the worst thing, tapping issues. Tapping has been so fucked up in CSGO from day one. One of the core things that would separate the godlike players in 1.6 is, yes, they had amazing spray. Yes, their movement was sick. Yeah, headshot accuracy would be sick. But the ones who had amazing technique could destroy opponents with that. A great example, okay, is this Danish player called Trace. He would just use these bursts and then tapping so that once he basically got you in his crosshair, that was a kill. Like, you can move any way you want. He can miss a shot. He can have to reposition. But unless you kill him within your first shot or second shot, you're pretty much dead. He's going to get the kill onto you because he's going to switch up techniques to whatever's effective at that moment. Like, oh, I missed that. I'll spray a bit. Oh, now I'm repositioned. Tap on him to get the final kills. Whatever. He's going to use his aim and his technique and positional advantage, all of the advantages you can have. He's going to combine them all and definitely destroy you. That doesn't work in CSGO to the same degree. That's very inconsistent in terms of how it works. We all know the problems with the accuracy on the first bullet sometimes. That's fucked up. And having to wait for the crosshair to come back down in terms of the field of accuracy that you're going to have versus these weapons where you're just firing all the time, all these pistols, you just spam. These guns have been weakened. It's not that they're not effective, they're still used as the main weapons. They're just not as effective, and it's making these other guns have an unnatural advantage that they shouldn't have. You can give those other guns the same strengths, but there has to be more strength in the main core rifles if we want to balance it out and have a proper hierarchy. So let's now talk generally about hierarchy and about viability of weapons. What does all guns should be viable actually mean? Now, as far as I can tell, Valve that means all guns should be used at some point by players who play Counter-Strike. Don't really understand what that means. Like, there's a reason why the meta exists, okay? It wasn't that someone sat down and said, right, well, the AK is the best weapon, so we're going to use that 99% of rounds, and then otherwise we're only ever going to save for a pistol, and then we're never going to buy an SMG because they're shit. The reason why that exists, the meta, is because that is the most effective way right now to play the game of Counter-Strike. So unfortunately, we only have 3 sorts of rounds in Counter-Strike. We have a pistol round. Now, in terms of the weapons you buy, the pistol is also identical to a pure save round in theory. We have a full buy round, where you buy the best rifle you can, and armor and likely some nades. What do we have as the third? We all know the half buy. Now, on the half buy, in the old world of CS, that used to mean that half of your team bought, or you bought an AK with no armor. But now, half buy often means you buy some nades and a Tech 9 or something, which actually, it turns out there's no save rounds anymore in general. You're just buying them nearly all the time. But anyway, there's only those three sorts of rounds. Okay, so now let's look at some of the weapons in CS. When would the shotgun ever be viable in those three rounds there? Why would you ever buy it on a half buy when you could buy a super OP pistol and get some nades and flashes, or you could buy the AK with no armor? When would it ever be viable? Well, obviously not on a pistol, so it can't be there. And when will it ever be viable on a main buy round? Well, it shouldn't, because you're not going to be able to get at the very short range that a shotgun is supposed to be effective at most of your round. You won't be able to choose the range. A key concept in Counter-Strike is choosing the range that the battle takes place at. Even if you're if a CT or a terrorist, most maps, you're not going to be able to choose it all the time. You can choose to a degree in terms of how you hold a site or where you attack a site from, but in general, you're not going to be able to choose it all the time. So a shotgun immediately drops off in terms of viability and use. So someone can use it if they want to, but actually, the way the game itself is played makes that gun not viable. So if you now buff it and do all this shit with it, the only way you're going to make it viable is going to break the concept of a shotgun. You'd have to make it better at long range, probably shoot faster, maybe have a larger clip, higher kill reward, cost less money. Any of these things, each one is game breaking in itself, and you're ruining the other weapons and the strengths that they have naturally and the meta of the game. But you're going to have to do at least one, if not two or three of these, to make this gun viable. But in what sense are you making it viable? Well, you're actually making it viable by stealing strengths away from the other weapons. So a shotgun, which has a weapon, I'm not talking about in real life, by the way, but even in Counter-Strike, conceptually, it's supposed to be the close range weapon where you better land that first shot. If you miss that first shot, odds are you're going to get killed by anyone with a decent weapon. That's the way the game is meant to work. So in this particular sense, you're now betraying the concept of the shotgun to make it viable. Well, in that scenario, what have you gained by doing that? Oh, now people don't buy this other weapon because now they can use the shotgun in scenarios they can't use it in. That's what you've done with viability. So what does viability mean? Does it mean, and here's a key concept that I want to get to, because this is really what I think the philosophy that people are poorly communicating when they say that it's more exciting, that you should be able to use all these weapons, that SMG should be so viable, that super OP pistol should be so viable, and that you should be able to buy them. Here's what I think people actually unknowingly are saying, and when I phrase it like this, it's going to sound ridiculous, but they're sort of saying this. So essentially, to you guys, viability is, in every single round of Counter-Strike, no matter what you did last round, no matter how much money you spent, no matter what you did in terms of kills, no matter how you positioned yourself, no matter whether you lost the round, no matter whether you gave maximum money to the opponent, no matter whether the opponent has an amazing economy, you want to always be able to buy some kind of gun that gives you a good, if not very good chance of getting a kill. Right? Well, Counter-Strike's not the game for you then, mate, because that's not the way Counter-Strike, conceptually, as a good game, is going to be able to work. As in, if I do a round before where I had a Colt, and I take a risky one-on-one where I was trying to save the weapon, well, I guess that wouldn't work, would it? I take a risky aim duel where I was trying to save my Colt, and now I lose the Colt, I now get punished, right? Because I don't have that Colt anymore, and maybe I don't have enough money to buy a Colt. Except I don't, because in your world of viability, where I can always buy some sort of gun, I just now buy some sort of gun, go into the scenario where that's most effective, just use it, and now I can get a kill. And actually my chances, yes, the guy who has the main rifle's got a better chance, but how big is the chance? How much am I punished for the poor play, for the poor decision? Not so much in the world of the SMGs and these OP pistols. Now let's go to another situation. What if I have like $3,200 as a CT, okay? And no, let's say as a terrorist, okay? $3,200. And I'm in a situation where, well, no, let's say a straight $3,000, okay? In this particular situation, as a terrorist, on some of the maps that are super CT-sided, I gotta have my flashes and my smokes if I'm gonna get in the site, right? So I don't want to be doing force rifle buys because I'm going to be fucked on armor and definitely on nades. So if I do that, that's fine. I'm allowed to buy the gut rifle and have less armor and less nades, but I'm going to be punished, right? In this particular scenario, I should either fully save and get to the point where I can get the rifle but with the nades that I need, or I should buy now and I'm punished, but I know that the conditions for me to be able to win now is I'm not going to have the flash and nade, therefore I'm going to have to take aim duels, and I'm going to have to win them, and I'm going to have to do it with the disadvantage of not having the flashes and the nades, or maybe even full head armor. So in this world where I'm going to have to do that, I understand that I'm at a disadvantage, but I'm choosing to gamble because I want to win now to break back, to not have to give another round up. So it all makes sense. There's a balance to that. Now, if instead I can go, right, well, what I'll do is 2 of my team will buy those AKs. The other 3 will buy Tech 9s. They'll buy armor as well. And they'll buy full flashes and smokes, and we'll flash and smoke in like we would anyway, go in with the AKs so we've got some power there, and everyone else who'll be to the side of the AKs is just spamming and moving constantly with those Tech 9s. And now actually, you know what, we have a pretty good chance of getting the round win actually now. Not like we have the best chance, the CTs still have the best chance, but our odds go up too much, to which it's not, where's the gamble factor there? Like 3 of our guys have only bought Tech 9s. I mean, yeah, they bought armor and the nades and all the rest of it, but it's not in a scenario where, even though we're all draining all of our money, well, we should be at a massive disadvantage. If we've all got AKs and poor armor and no nades, we're at a massive disadvantage normally in Counter-Strike there. Well, we're actually not in this scenario. We've still got the nades and flashes, which is what the other guys had the problem with, right? Some of us have got full armor, we've got the Tech 9s, we're going to use those at those range and use the other. That's not like I'm the most genius tactician ever by designing that approach there. Everyone can do that. Every level of pro player can do that. And it's balancing it up too much. Now add in SMGs. That's another problem with SMGs people don't bring up. It's not a straight 1 SMG versus 1 rifle. Ignore that battle. One of the problems is now we can have 3 rifles, 3 AKs and 2 SMGs. And if the SMGs just hang around properly, now they can actually be super effective only at their range and not have to battle otherwise. They can come in after the AKs go in, and then they can get everyone at medium range, and they can run and gun them while the other guy's trying to fight a 1v1 battle with a Colt's trying to fight with an AK and play properly and positional and use aim there, but someone's just running at him constantly, spraying the whole time. See what I mean? We've evened it up too much. By making it more viable, we've actually fucked with the viability of the AK, essentially. What you've done is take away some of the strengths of the AK, where it's not worth the super gamble and it's not worth saving for. Instead, you've always got a choice you can go with where, oh, that's the obvious answer, just buy that now. And you're going to be buying nearly all the rounds that anyone has any sort of economy at all, unless you're totally dead broke, in which case you go into the OP pistols, aren't you? This is the problem here. It's that we've seen at the pro level, this isn't a theory at this point, it's experientially been proven that these top level, elite, world-class, best of all time at CSGO are able to use these particular weapons in a way where their odds on getting the kill do not drop down, even, here's the key distinction, when they're facing other godlike best players in the world. Now here's the important fact to understand about hierarchy. Hierarchy is great because it doesn't say you can't get a kill. It says that the skill cap on how to get a kill, in what way you're going to be able to, the level of skill you require, is there's a balance between that. As in, yes, if Shox has a CZ or a weapon, well, let's not say that because Shox is obviously a god of the other pistols. Let's say Shox has a P250 and he's versus Get Right, who's holding a spot as CT. These 2 players skill-wise are quite even. Therefore, in that situation, we all know in the real world, most of the time, let's say at 70 to 80% of the time, if that one-on-one battle happens, even at close and medium range, 70 to 80% of the time, Get Right is going to win that battle. The problem arises that for Shox to win that battle, he should now, if he has the P250 versus a Colt, be facing someone a bit less skilled, okay? So let's say, okay, I'll pick this example. Let's say he's facing Kierby from Dignitas. Not a skilled player, a skilled player still, a decent player, one with has some talent, good with a Colt. Now, Shox, if he uses the max of his skill level, uses great technique, positions himself well, times it well, he can get the win on there, and maybe his chances are a little bit better. Because versus Get Right, let's say Get Right had the 80 to 20. Let's say versus Kirby. Kirby's only 70-30 against Shox. So now there's a scenario in which it makes more sense for Shox to try and use it. If he uses skill, he actually deserves and can take the kill for himself. But here's the problem. In a world with the OP pistols and with the SMGs and with these half buys, now we're getting into scenarios where when it's the even players again, Get Right versus Shox, now we're in a scenario where as long as a little bit of distance is closed, like for example, that happens in maps even when you don't choose to, now suddenly it might actually be as close as like, only 60-40 to Get Right, or only 65-35 to Get Right. Yet Get Right is as equally skilled, just as good a player, as good knowledge of the game, is going to be positioned well, and yet he's not being rewarded for having the better gun, for having the better position. There's no reward there. The hierarchy does not work. The reason why I bring this up is because naturally within the metagame, as I've described, there's going to be more effective weapons. And part of that is the hierarchy of which weapons ideally you'd want to use because of their strength over ranges, firing speed, damage done, amount of skill it takes to get a kill. So in Quake, the first Quake game, Quake World, had a very strict hierarchy actually. You always wanted to get to the rocket launcher. It's super powerful, it's good at nearly all ranges, and yeah, it does a lot of damage. It's not super easy to aim. It's reasonably easy at aim, but it also has a very high skill cap where you can hit incredibly difficult shots. Now there's another weapon. There's a lightning gun, which does extremely high damage, extremely fast, but has very low armor. And you have to be in a very specific range. If you're beyond that range, you can't be hit by it. So that has a viability, but only once you get into that situation. But it's very expensive. It has all these prohibitive costs to it. It takes a lot of skill to use because you have to be aiming right on the pixel, right in the middle. There's no wiggle room with the lightning gun. Then you go down to other weapons. Some of them require less skill to use, require more skill to use as a result. So the grenade launcher, yeah, grenades do an awesome job. It's like getting hit by a rocket, but it's way harder to hit. You don't get so many grenades. So that has a lower hierarchy down. You keep going down. There's a hierarchy to all the weapons. And it's not that they can't all be used. If you have a choice of you have to go to the grenade launcher because all you've got and the other guys go rocket launcher, it's the same as in Counter-Strike. If I don't have the money and I do have to do a force buy or I go with an OP pistol, yeah, I'm at a disadvantage. So now I have to outskill this guy. I have to use better technique than him. I have to position myself better. I have to read the game better. You don't have to do any of those things with some of these aspects we're talking about. You just have to stay mobile, and then if he misses the first few shots, which even godlike players are doing because of problems with rifles, now you're getting a kill. Now you've got massive money just from even one kill in terms of the kill bonus. There's a great concept that Dazed brought up, okay, the former Iron Power player, which is that basically we have this term actually in League of Legends. He probably didn't think of it though. Just in League of Legends and Dota, we talk about gold efficiency. So the concept is, for the amount of money you pay for an item in one of those MOBAs, how much damage does it do? How well is it going to scale into the late game? All these concepts, okay. How much damage compared to something else you could buy in terms of what a kill's going to get back for you if you get some. What is the efficiency of the item for what you have to pay for it? That's a great concept to bring to Counter-Strike. Because one of the things you'll learn in that sense is that 99% of balance discussions in Counter-Strike go along these lines. Is it too easy to aim? Is it too powerful? Is the distance it uses fucked up? Are you able to use it while running? These are all great concepts, talking about a gun in a general sense, but talking about the metagame and when people are going to use them. Because remember what I said before, Tech 9 was viable back in the CZ days, but no one used it because the CZ was there. SMGs were viable, but no one was using it because the OP pistols were there and rifles were there. So another concept that can keep things which are super powerful in check is not even looking at those, which is how I'd balance it, but a way you can balance it quite simply, call it soft balance if you want, is the economy. You price it in a manner where you're paying for what you're getting. If I'm getting too good a deal, first of all, that's making it so there's almost never a situation I shouldn't buy the Tech 9 and the CZ, which was what happened. And also, I'm getting too much value, it's too effective for how much I'm paying versus the main rifle full buy. That's a key concept. So the point that Dazed made was that if you looked at a weapon, like I think he was talking about the Tech 9, if you looked at the Tech 9, it costs $500, you get this ridiculous kill reward, the mobility's amazing, you can get a crazy headshot almost randomly, not even fucking aimed, you can shoot constantly, there's never any technique required really to use this weapon, and you can close distances. Yeah, it's dropped off a bit at long range now, but most fights are going to be medium to short range anyway, as long as you don't take the long fucking angle on long A or something on Dust 2. So if you actually looked at the cost effectiveness, $500 is way too cheap. That's part of the problem. That's why we're buying it all the time. If you wanted to make it reasonable, actually a Tech 9, as it currently sits, unless you're going to nerf some aspects, should probably, Dave's made this point, I think he's got it about right, it should probably cost about $1,200. So it should cost as much as, or more than some SMGs, because of the value you'll get out of it, how effective it's going to be, and to make it cost prohibitive so that at times you buy it and you fuck up and you lose and it wouldn't be worth the money. It would fuck you over economically, which is supposed to happen when you don't succeed with the weapons. That's one of the things people never argued about when they were talking about the OP pistols. They'd always talk about the scenario, which is correct, which is that they're so effective, people were always getting kills, always getting weapons off them, always being able to buy and make it work. But there was also no punishment. $500 was nothing to lose for the CZ and the Tech 9. At least the P250, the P250, the problem there is it's only $300. So you know what I mean? Here are the issues that we're going to here. So if you were to put numbers on these things, well now, because you've made the SMGs more effective, now I'm going to have to put the price up. Yeah, but if you put the price up, why would anyone buy an SMG over a rifle? Finally, you now understand how the hierarchy and economy of CS works. Why would you? Remember, even people who argue in favor of these guns argue that there should be a range at which all these weapons are viable. Okay, based on how much money you have to pay. So the reason why you don't buy a shotgun is not that it's not viable super close range. It is. But first of all, it's not really good beyond a couple of targets close range. And then most of the game you're going to play at other ranges, it's not going to be good. And it costs so much that as a result, you'd be better off going with something else that you can use at other ranges. And it's going to cost similar money and it's going to be more effective. Same scenario. If we make these SMGs so that they cost $1,700, $1,800, which is if you don't change the values of the gun, remember? Yeah, now it's getting fair. Now you can buy it where you didn't have quite enough for a rifle, but you buy this and then you try and use it in this one particular fashion it's most effective at. Maybe you get a kill with it. Okay, great. I mean, the kill reward, yeah, whatever. It would probably still be too high. I don't really like this dynamic kill reward, but ignoring that, now then, you're probably going to say, yeah, but then what would be the point in SMGs? You've just ruined SMGs. No, mate. You ruined SMGs by making them super cheap, super viable, and then have all these advantages, and then get you more money, and then not be as much of a gamble. So there's another way. Here's the other deal you can have. But I want SMGs to stay at the same price. Absolutely fine. I'm on board with that. I'm on board with SMGs staying at the same price, pistols staying at the same price. Do you want to know why? Because I'd reduce the damage, and make them harder to use, and make a less random component to it, and make them slightly less immobile. Not totally, because they are supposed to be used as run and gun weapons, but slightly less immobile. Like lower clip size for some of them, or like for example, the MP9 has great firing rate, etc. I'd probably reduce the clip rate a little bit more. So that as a result, if you are just going to spam all the bullets immediately, you better be really accurate with those ones. Or you better get them all onto it. You can't just keep moving and trust that the immobility of the opponent is going to play into your hands and make it so it doesn't matter how you aim. These are core concepts that when you look at the premises, notice how I break the premises down before I go to the examples, and then I make sure the examples fit into those premises. That's how you've got to look at the game if you want to balance it. Because otherwise you're going to make a change here that doesn't fit in line with your own balance philosophy, and therefore another area of the game doesn't make sense now. Like the AWP being nerfed, but then buffing guns which can run a gun and get in close on the guy, and he can't re-peek on them properly. This is a core concept. This is also why this stuff, sorry to say, as a philosophy, the idea that everything should be viable, I should be able to buy a weapon at all times I could get a kill with over who, any level of skill player, is wrong, is that unfortunately it appeals to noobs. It appeals to bad players. I'll give you an anecdote that I've told before in an episode, but it'll probably be worthwhile. There was a guy on a Quake forum for Quake 3, actually Quake Live, but it's the same game basically, and he said, the topic was like, oh, how can we convince people to play Quake 3? You know, League of Legends is popular, StarCraft popular. How can we get more people to play Quake? Because we all love Quake. And so people naively obviously think, right, well, just get them to play Quake. Because when they play it, they're going to realize how fun it is, the possible skill level, and they're going to think, like I would when I started playing, wow, that guy's so much better than me. And rather than thinking, oh, that's fucking bullshit, it's unfair, why is he better than me? I wish they should even the game up for me. Instead, what I thought was like, oh my god, that's awesome, I'm going to play this game even more, because first of all, it's really fun. I can see that I'm bad, therefore I'm constantly aware of the reference point of the skill level of how good I could get. Then I see a guy who's that skill level, and I'm like, awesome. Because think about it, when I get good, when I get trained up, I'm going to get close to his level, which will then allow me to be this dominant and be this expressive of my talent and my skill, and this far ahead, as I should be, of this other guy who hasn't got as much skill, hasn't trained as much, who doesn't know the technique. That's a great game. That's very rewarding. That's very satisfying. That plays into the idea of showing off your potential as a competitor in terms of skill and technique and brain and all the rest of it. Instead, what happened was he gave his friend Quake Live, and he had his friend try it for half an hour. He just had him playing on free-for-all, not even a good mode. Just had him running around on free-for-all, killing people. And after half an hour, he said to his friend, what did he think of the game? Like, do you like it? And his friend was like, it was fun. It was fun. Problem was, though, like, I didn't really like that I couldn't really compete with the guys there. Now, maybe to some of you, you think, well, it makes sense. You know, I want to be able to get kills. I want to have fun when I play. No, here's the problem, okay? This guy is playing his first half an hour of Quake Live ever in his life, and he expects that whoever he's playing against, let's face it, probably zero of the players he's playing against is on their first half an hour. Well, let's assume they've all at least got 100 hours, if not thousands of hours, if not a couple of years in the game. Within his first half an hour, he not only wants to be able to every now and then get a kill and be bad and have to learn, oh, there's a massive difference. He wants to be able to compete with the best players and go, I had a chance to win that whole game there. Or even though I don't know what weapons to use, I wanted every weapon I had to be able to have a chance to get this kill on this guy. And, oh, is he more skilled than me? I still want to be able to maybe get a kill on him. All these concepts, if you understand the way modern game design works, unfortunately are part of what's made modern games fairly shit and quite corrosive to the concept of high-level competition, which is why it's so fucking irritating that we have to use these games as the vehicle to hold these mega skilled tournaments of high-level esports where we want the most skilled players to play each other and to see their level of skill and technique and brain and all the rest, yet we're giving them shoddy and shoddier tools and vehicles to express that skill and talent and battle each other with and to show a differentiation between each other. That's frustrating, but you see the concept there. To the bad guy, he wants things easier, he wants things this way. Now, here's the thing. I don't say, oh, you shouldn't want that. I understand that maybe the guy who played that was only going to play Quake a few hours. So to him, he was like, well, if I'm going to play it, it's going to be crap if I just get killed all the time. Yeah, I get it. But you know what? That means Quake isn't for you, mate. Quake's a game where it's a very high skill level, requires technique, understanding of the game. So to get those things, you're going to have to dedicate yourself. You're going to have to put in a lot of time. Basically, yeah, it's going to be quite shit initially, but it's going to have a great learning curve, and then it's going to have a lot more satisfaction at the end of the scale. You want all your satisfaction now. Now, that's not an issue. You can be that person. I'm not saying it's wrong to be that person. What I'm saying is wrong is when the game developer says, I'm going to cater all of the game to that person. The person who likes the game the least, wants to put in the least amount of time, wants it to be very easy, doesn't want to have to make any choices. He can just buy whatever he wants and it can be viable. It won't be a mistake. He doesn't have to learn what the weapons are correct for, how much, when you should buy them, situations that they make sense to be fired at, technique of how to fire them, how to battle someone with a better weapon. Yeah, if we just make it so there aren't really better weapons that much, then that takes away some of that. That's, if you balance the game for those people, hey, listen, for those people, you make a great game. You ruin the fucking game for the people at the top level, though. And since I care about the top level and the elite level of competition, these are terrible decisions to me. And it should be the opposite. You should be creating a game where it's for the pros in that sense, as in what they can do with the weapons is high skill on. Now, I don't think it has to be one or the other, by the way. I think there is a world. Now, I could get in a whole debate about the fact that I think it should be a pro mode. There should. But ignoring that, I think there's also a world in which you can make the higher skill level, more versatility to some of the weapons exist, but be so difficult that bad players wouldn't be able to access it anyway. So to them, the game still would be quite fun and quite balanced like this, and people could buy on the third round when they lost pistol in a way that doesn't make sense, and they wouldn't be punished. Whatever, all the dog shit that the fucking noobs want, you could still have that. But by making this a way to use technique and skill and damage and manage the economy proper, and make it well thought out philosophically for the pros, then at their high skill level, at their very elite level, they would basically unlock, in terms of how they play the game and understanding of it, these higher echelons of the game that would provide now over the top of it a hidden hierarchy that would exist and would be quite distinct only to the elite level pros. I think that's possible. The fact that some of these game developers don't is because I don't think they're looking for that. I don't think they care about that. I don't think they even stop to think about the premises, these philosophies that I'm trying to unpack here. I don't think they ever think of any of these things. I think a lot of them just come along and go, this would be a cool idea for a gun, right? If you could just do that. And hey, wouldn't it be fun if it only... Even worse, we all know, they look at fucking stats and go, no one's using this gun. Just put the money down. Just put the damage up. Just make it so you can run and fire using it. Is someone using it now? Yeah, loads of people are using it. Because, let me stop you there. You said that more people are using it. Good, that's what I wanted. How many people are using it exactly? Well, I mean, now there's like 33% using it, just the same as like an AK. What? Great, I've done all I need to do. Well, no, you didn't let me finish there. The reason people are using it is because you made it too easy and there's no real reason not to buy it. And like, you've made it not even cost prohibitive in any sense, and you've made it so actually it has advantages sometimes over the better weapon, which is actually destroying the balance of the game, and now it's actually punishing sometimes people who have better weapons and made those choices. Like, excuse me, I don't care about any of that. Like, I've done my job here. Like, what the fuck's going on with Valve when that sort of world's happening? So yeah, every gun should not be viable. Mainly because I've never heard anyone unpack the term viable to be something reasonable. They're always doing this sort of bullshit that I'm describing, where I should always be able to buy a gun with any amount of money. I should be able to possibly outskill someone equally skilled to me who had all the same position advantages as everything else. I should actually have an advantage. This is a mind-blowing concept. Why would SMG ever have an advantage over an AK or a Colt? As in, yeah, if you're point blank, maybe it does because you can move and do that stuff, right? That's one very slim chance. At medium range, it should not have an advantage. It should maybe be close to that level, and if you just get to that one, now you've evened it up a little bit, so the gamble of buying it's maybe worthwhile. But the idea that it will be better than a rifle is utter lunacy. And yeah, in CS 1.6, obviously we could spray a lot more with the AK and especially with the Colt, and get those spray downs, which eliminated that. It's part of the reason no one did use those weapons, even though they weren't OP, the SMGs in CSGO. But you can see the issue here.